Hello, lovely people of the world.
Magandang araw sa inyong lahat.
안녕하세요, 여러분.
Ahlan wa sahlan.
This is Justin.
And Sarah.
And what is today's video?
So today, as promised, we bring to you a video to talk about our oldest daughter, Sabrina, and her recent diagnosis. We can start with how we found out, like before the diagnosis, what led us to her diagnosis. First and foremost, Sabrina has been going to day home full time while Justin and I are either at work or while I'm on maternity leave taking care of like a newborn. It's either her baby sister or her baby brother at the time. So she started day home at 18 months of age because that's when my maternity leave ended. And just last year, I believe like late in 2023, our day home lady had asked us, because we noticed that, I would make comments like, oh, Sabrina doesn't like giving us hugs, or, she sometimes when you call out her name, she wouldn't even look at you. Not just once or twice, like I'm talking like you can call her name 10 times. And if she's in the middle of doing something else, she wouldn't look at you. And then also...
She doesn't follow instructions.
Yes.
Like you tell her to come here, she would run into the street without even looking.
She would dart towards the street. She would dart towards like a dog, thinking, oh, so cute, and stick her hand out in front of the dog's face, like to pet it. And we're talking like random dogs. Like dogs don't know her. They need to sniff her first and recognize her scent to know that she's friendly. So things like that. Like she has no sense of danger. We also noticed that she'd prefer to play by herself in her little corner. And we're not talking like she has a specific corner. Like in any environment, she would just gravitate towards a corner and play by herself. So she would give like toys some monologues, for example. She'd just play by herself and she'd be completely content. She also does not like it when other kids try to play with her, because then she's like, no, you're disrupting my space. Or she won't say that out loud, but she would just like, no, and she'll start whining.
What are you doing there, Sabrina? Mulch. What are you doing there? Are you creating your science project?
When she does get upset, she just cries, and she can't seem to find the words to express what it is that's frustrating her, or why is it that she's crying. Things like that.
She often goes into her scripts.
Yes.
Like she watches Peppa Pig, and one episode, Peppa Pig says, there's a spider in my bedroom, and Peppa is screaming because she's scared. Every time Sabrina is scared
or loses
then she would come running to me, and she says, there's a spider in my bedroom, even though we are nowhere near her bedroom at the moment.
Yeah. Just things like that, where she's not able to verbalize exactly what it is that is upsetting her, and instead she's using scripts from Peppa Pig, for example. So basically, that's another thing too, is that she was like, despite all of that, she was she had a very sharp memory. So she would actually memorize all the seasons and all the episodes of her favorite show, such as Peppa Pig. And then she could just dictate, like verbatim, she could dictate it to you, or whenever she feels like it. Like let's say that it's bedtime, the lights are off, her bedroom door is closed. She would just talk to herself and recite the entire episode, and things like that. And we felt like, wow, like she has a really sharp memory. So it's little things like that our day home lady and us were like noticing. And then one day our day home lady,
and before she was talking, she was very non-verbal until she was like 3.5. She would say one words like juice, water, but everything else she would just point and grunt.
Like for example, I should go
Yeah.
like that. And then, yeah, she would actually point, but like open hand point. She'll go, and we didn't understand what it is she wanted to say.
Who's that? Carlos. Who's that? Claudia. Who's that? Ryder. Who's that? Marshall. Who's that? Marshall.
So as the day home lady noticed the same things, she had mentioned to me like, hey, you know, like, have you considered maybe getting Sabrina, you know, checked by a not by a doctor, she said by a professional, just to see like how she's doing, because I hear that there are government grants that are in place that could assist you, and supports that can assist Sabrina as well, you know, going forward if she's struggling with like finding her words or struggling to express herself, or like just to figure out what it is that's going on with Sabrina overall. She had mentioned that one time, and I was like, oh, maybe I should look into these government supports and yeah, see like where I should begin with that. I had booked an appointment with our family doctors, also Sabrina's. And then a family doctor assessed Sabrina and said, actually, she looks perfectly healthy physically. She seems like a happy child. If she's able to like, she noticed that Sabrina was sort of paying attention to the signs that are on the bulletin board behind us on the wall. She noticed that Sabrina was sort of recognizing words. At the time, she was able to recognize certain words. I can't remember what was there, like, I think man or something that she was able to recognize, and she points at it and then she's like blue, she recognizes that. Just sight words, certain sight words, which by the way, we've never taught her. Nobody has. It's like she suddenly is able to recognize certain words. And she's like, she seems like she's very smart actually. And I don't see anything wrong with her, but I know, you know, like you are her parent. And if you feel like you need a referral, I can refer you to a developmental pediatrician to make sure that Sabrina is meeting all her developmental milestones. So I was like, yes, please, please give us a referral. And she's like, okay, but I have to warn you, the wait time is about 8 months to a year to be seen by a pediatrician in general. Yeah, because just, you know, the growing population in Calgary, and it's just too many children, not enough pediatricians, most especially not enough developmental pediatricians in particular. So I was like, yeah, just put us on the wait list or put us in the queue. And we counted and we're like, okay, that should happen around June of 2024 when we should hear back from the pediatrician's office. That would be the 8-month mark. So that's just being optimistic. In the meantime, our doctor did suggest that we can always seek professional assessments privately. So sort of reaching out to private clinics and sort of paying for the assessments for Sabrina up front, and then getting that reimbursed through our work health insurance or health coverage, which is currently under Justin's because he's the only one working right now. So yeah. So I was like, okay, that's probably an avenue we might consider, because I mean, Sabrina is scheduled to start kindergarten, which is her first day ever in school or in the school system, in late August of 2024. So if she does not get seen by a pediatrician by June, and we're not even sure like if she will be seen, it might be too late. And we need to know what support she needs to have in place before she starts school. So I did some research and looked into a speech therapist. Sorry, the family doctor did suggest like one of the private services that are being offered is speech therapy. Because she said, unfortunately, seeing a pediatrician, you cannot see them privately unless you have a referral from a doctor. So when she mentioned speech therapy, I said, okay, I'll look into that first. So that's what I did. I searched our area online, and then I found like our neighborhood speech therapy clinic. I gave them a call and booked an appointment. Luckily, they did say they do reimburse or offer reimbursements for like any charges that we will incur in the process, and that they do have like one of the best speech therapists in the area available to see Sabrina, and that's how it started. So we basically have been booked for Sabrina to see the speech therapist in the comfort of our own home every 2 weeks, which is amazing too, because it is during the week. So Justin would be at work, Chanel would be in day home, and it's an afternoon session, so Jaden is luckily down for his nap. So this is the only time that Sabrina gets to have one-on-one interaction with the speech therapist and myself present without any distractions. So it worked out perfectly. And that's how it all started, really, is she's been going through speech therapy, and then one day, I believe months later, a month or two later, the speech therapist had noticed, because she has been doing this and this is her field of expertise, she said she had noticed that maybe Sabrina would benefit from seeing a child psychologist to actually give her a diagnosis before being seen by a pediatrician, because she did confirm to me that the pediatrician wait time is actually much longer than 8 months. So she's like, if you'd like, you don't have to wait for a pediatrician to give Sabrina a diagnosis or to give her an assessment. We could just book her to see a child psychologist, which is again another private health service that we would need to pay up front and then get reimbursed through Justin's work.
Before that, the reason why our speech therapist mentioned all that, because she noticed that Sabrina is a Gestalt speech learner. Is that the word?
Oh, Gestalt, yeah. Gestalt thought language processor, which is basically a characteristic of of children as well as adults, where they think outside of the box, and the way their mind works is completely different. So she calls like Sabrina's Gestalt thought language processing to be a characteristic of a neurodivergent child or person. So she said that Sabrina is actually not her mind does not work like a neurotypical person, and actually she is exhibiting signs of neurodivergence. She did not quite say the diagnosis yet, because she said it is not her field of expertise or her position to diagnose her officially. She's just saying that she is exhibiting signs of Gestalt thought language processing.
Which means that she processes in chunks of words, like whole sentences, as opposed to digest one word and then digest second word and then produce sentence in that way. But she would just process entire sentence all at once.
Or entire words, as opposed to sounding off each letter of the alphabet. So for example, if she sees the word book, instead of recognizing that book it starts with the letter B, so it makes a B sound, and two O's make an U sound, and the K makes a K sound, she does not recognize it that way. She's instead memorizing the entire word as like, that's what the word book looks like. So every time I see that word in a book, like when I'm reading, I would just know off of memory that word means book. So she doesn't actually read off. So for example, if you give her, if she comes across a word that she's not familiar with, let's say the word bring, right? She would look at, it starts with the letter B, so this might be book. If she's not familiar with the word, she won't even try to sound off like B makes a B sound, R makes an R sound, and NG makes a Ng sound. She just looks at the B, it starts with the letter B, this must be the word book, because that's all I know. That's what she's going to do. But actually she does have an extensive vocabulary when it comes to sight words. She actually knows a lot of words like off of memory. She recognizes a lot of these words, and then she memorizes them. And if she's in doubt, she would always like come to us and say, what's this? What's that? And then we would tell her, that word is bring, that word is fruit. And then she would just memorize that, which is pretty amazing. Not gonna lie, I have no one to compare her with currently. I mean, only after the diagnosis I'm able to see and understand better. But before the diagnosis, I had nobody to compare her with. Like, is she supposed to know how to recognize these words at this age?
And when she was 3.5, when she was non-verbal, she would just point and grunt. We thought that would that's normal. It's like all kids, develop in different pace. I thought this is just her pace of her development. And then when Chanel came along, she was very much verbal even before she turned 2.
Yeah, she had full.
She was having a conversation with us. I could ask, "Where's Mama?" And then she said she went upstairs. She would say all that
Chanel would say
before
all
she
that.
turned 2.
Yeah.
And Sabrina wasn't even saying a sentence when she was 3.5.
Yeah. Actually, no, she was saying a sentence at 3.5, but she's not conversing, right? She's not carrying.
Well, she would say like "there's a spider in my bedroom," like that sentence, but it's not a conversational sentence.
So let's say we ask her, "Hey Sabrina, what do you want to eat for lunch?" And then she would say, "Peppa Pig went to the garden and played and had a picnic." She'd say something like that, and we're like, "Okay, that still does not answer my question. What would you like to eat?" And then she, you know what I mean? Like, she does not understand that we need for her to give us a response to our question, or like just have a conversation. And we noticed that Chanel, even before she turned 2, she could give us that answer. And she's not just one word. She will say, I want to eat this and that. Like, she would actually say it. And we're like, okay, so Chanel can converse. Sabrina is struggling with that. We noticed these little things only when Chanel started talking. Is when we're like, okay, maybe Sabrina would benefit from seeing a speech therapist. But of course, we try our best not to compare the two. We, like Justin had mentioned, all children develop at their own pace, so we thought nothing of it. But when our day home lady did bring up, like, hey, you might want to look into some of the supports that are out there that you can benefit through the government, also so that Sabrina could already have these supports in place before she starts school, just to make the transition easier for her. So
when my day home lady said that initially, my first reaction was, no, Sabrina doesn't have anything.
There's nothing wrong with her.
She's just typical kid. She has her own way of communicating and development. So initially, I just flat out rejected the idea.
Because Justin couldn't understand, like, why is the day home lady thinking there's anything different about Sabrina? She is just like me, right? Like, I was like that too when I was younger. No big deal. And I also thought the same. I said, oh, that's just her personality type. Like Chanel is just a lot like me. She's bubbly and sociable. And Sabrina is just a lot like Justin, who's like quieter and prefers to do their own thing. And they get, really focused, hyper-focused on whatever interests them in the moment. They don't really care to, mingle with others. They're pretty content being in their own little corner, doing their own thing. So yeah, so I had, going back to the story, I had, you want to add anything more? So yeah, I was able to get a referral from Sabrina's speech therapist. She did refer us to a child psychologist that she is working with, that she also highly recommends. She said that she is amazing. And this child psychologist actually has only one role in the clinic that she works at, and her role is just purely assessment. That is all. So once she gives Sabrina an assessment or a diagnosis, her job is basically done, and then she would just refer us to the appropriate resources, or appropriate, if she needs to continue to see a psychologist that specializes in Sabrina's diagnosis, then she would refer us or point us in that direction. But she does not actually offer services such as focused on the diagnosis. She said that she has done that in the past, but now she specializes in just giving a diagnosis and doing all the assessments. She was super kind. Honestly, we've locked out. All the specialists that we have been seeing or being referred to for Sabrina's care have been tremendously amazing. And yeah, so Sabrina started, first of all, the way it started was Justin and I had to do a virtual meeting with the psychologist without Sabrina's presence, which we felt was perfect because Sabrina did not like it when we would talk about her to others or to anybody. Every time we mention Sabrina's name in our conversation, like amongst adults, she seems to get triggered by that. So we're like, okay, good, because we don't want to talk about Sabrina in front of others. She doesn't like it very much. Or she's very sensitive to that. So when the psychologist did our first two sessions virtually with just Justin and I, she was basically just gathering information as to like our backgrounds first, and then Sabrina's background, like her childhood experience leading up to her turning 5, which she's currently 5 years old. She was asking whether we noticed any like certain things. So she was asking us pretty like direct yes or no questions, and also open-ended questions. She would ask sort of like, can you give an example? Like, when did you notice that Sabrina would point when she would talk, like as a baby, when she wants to initiate a topic? Did you notice that Sabrina would point? Did you notice that Sabrina would make eye contact with you? Does she respond to her name? For example, these are just some of the questions. And then we would basically share our observations with the psychologist. By the third session onwards, the psychologist, actually just the third session, asked for us to bring Sabrina into her office. It was just Sabrina and I at the time. Oh, and Jaden, because baby Jaden can't go anywhere without me. So yeah, it was Sabrina, myself, and Jaden that had gone into the psychologist's office while Justin was working and Chanel was in day home. And then it was basically a play-based assessment that the psychologist was conducting, where she would observe Sabrina's way of interacting with her, interacting with myself, interacting with her baby brother, as well as what sort of play interests her. And how does she respond to like unexpected events? For example, like Sabrina's in the middle of playing with something that interests her, and then suddenly the psychologist would tell her, okay, Sabrina, enough playing with that. Let's play with this instead. Let's play with this and see how she does. I would say overall it went well, but again, I'm not a psychologist. What I meant by went well is that Sabrina did not throw a fit. She did say no a couple of times, but she did not throw a tantrum or have a meltdown or anything like that. So it went pretty well. And yeah, of course, we had our lovely day home lady in the loop. We kept her updated as to like, oh, Sabrina has these speech therapies going on and she's being seen by a psychologist and all that stuff. And she was pretty happy to hear that. And then what happened? We waited a few weeks and we finally got a report from the child psychologist with Sabrina's diagnosis. That was our final virtual meeting with a psychologist. And yeah, I'll let Justin take over as to what his thoughts were when it...
So the diagnosis that came back was Sabrina is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder.
Yes. So our beautiful, sweet, darling Sabrina, our oldest daughter, has autism or is autistic. When I first heard that, I was sort of in shock. No, not really. We had our hunches, like going into this final diagnosis meeting. We had our hunches.
Based on the questions that she was asking,
Yeah.
does she make eye contact? Is she nonverbal? Those kind of things. So we already knew that those are the signs of autism, and she's asking those questions. So like maybe it's high chance that, given the answers we provided to her about how she wouldn't make eye contact, or she doesn't want to give hugs, she doesn't want to play with other kids, those things, we had a hunch that she might be diagnosed. And not only that, a lot of characteristics of Sabrina, like those are playing by herself, those things are characteristics that I have, and characteristics that I had when I was a kid, and some of those I still have those characteristics. And so when she said that Sabrina is diagnosed with autism, I wasn't surprised the reason was because when I was a kid, a lot of my school teachers thought that I was autistic, and they were asking my parents to have me seen by a specialist. But my mom refused to have me seen by a specialist because she didn't want me to identify myself with this disorder or diagnosis.
Like as if you have special needs, and she.
Yeah.
At the time, there was a stigma around that, and she was. I heard from Justin that she was pretty much offended that teachers would even suggest that Justin had special needs at the time, during their time.
Yeah, so yeah, I wasn't surprised that Sabrina was diagnosed with autism because when I was a kid, I had the same characteristics, and a lot of people thought I was autistic. So I could be autistic, just undiagnosed. Who knows?
That was another. She did ask, the psychologist did ask us as soon as we heard the diagnosis. She's like, "How does that make you feel?" And I told her that it made me feel relieved. But deep down, it also made me feel scared. Because I was like, I don't know much about autism. This is all new, new territory for me. And being her mom, I felt like it was my responsibility to know more about it in order to provide Sabrina the support that she deserves and that she needs. And so I was like, oh no, this is like, I felt relieved, but also scared about like, oh, the unknown. Like, and Justin, have we been parenting Sabrina the right way leading up to right now? Or have we been causing more damage? Every time we discipline her and stuff like that. At the time, we didn't understand, like, why is she throwing a fit? And we would try to discipline her like we would a neurotypical child, right? So we weren't sure. I was mostly scared that maybe we may have traumatized her in some ways. So it kind of scared me a bit. So yeah, I got emotional. Like, I was holding back tears and stuff. But
I wasn't scared at all when I heard the diagnosis because a lot of characteristics that Sabrina has are my characteristics, and I turned out just fine. I graduated from university, I got married, I got job, stable job, I have family. So my life turned out pretty okay. And I feel the same way about Sabrina. I think she's gonna be just fine. She's gonna be able to graduate from university, have a wonderful career, and she'll be able to have her own family.
And be happy.
Yeah, I don't think that she's gonna struggle or anything like that.
I need tissue. I don't know why I'm getting emotional now. I did ask the psychologist, is Sabrina's diagnosis somehow our fault? Like, did we do anything to cause her to be autistic? And she was like, no, absolutely not. And there was nothing we could have done differently. She is just like, she just thinks differently. Like, the way her mind works is just different. What's going on? So yeah, I couldn't help but look inward and go like, did I cause it? Was it something I ate? Something I drank? Something that happened in the womb, when she was a baby? And then she was kind enough to assure us that it has nothing to do with us, because I couldn't help but like blame myself for, like, she had a fall when she was 9 months old from our bed onto the hardwood floor. And it actually caused her like to have a minor laceration on her scalp. It bled, but stopped bleeding right away. And then when I did call the family doctor, their office, they did mock me a little bit, going like, is this the first time that your baby fell? That is pretty impressive that it took 9 months for that to happen. We hear this all the time. Don't worry about it. Did she black out? Was she unconscious? Did she? And I said, no, she cried right away. There was no like blackouts or anything. So they started laughing and go like, okay, yeah, don't worry about it. If you want, you could still bring her in, but we wouldn't worry about it. So I was like, okay, so I don't need to do an x-ray or anything. And they were like, yeah, no, you're fine. And then we have been bringing Sabrina for her like yearly checkup since then. She was 9 months. And yeah, since then we would see the doctor every 6 months at the time until she reached like 2 years of age. And she was hitting every milestone perfectly. They were asking how many words did she know or does she speak, and she was hitting each and every milestone perfectly. So we didn't sense anything was off. And mind you, even the family doctor that has seen her earlier this year did say that she seems perfectly healthy physically. She seems like a happy child, so emotionally healthy, and really smart if she's able to like show interest in reading. It's just we couldn't. I don't know. I personally couldn't help but go back there and go like, was it something I ate? Was it something I drank? Was it because she fell and hit her head? And then another thing that occurred to me was, it occurred to me that when Sabrina had her surgery when she was about, was she 3 or
She was 3.
She was 3. When she had a major surgery and was put under anesthesia, well, before that even, the surgeon did ask when they assessed Sabrina's toes and found like extra bone and that her toes were joined and everything. He did ask me, does she have any developmental delays? Or did you know, is she hitting her milestones in an age-appropriate manner? And I remember thinking, what's that got to do with her toes or her feet? You know, like, I said, no, she's perfectly fine. And I didn't make it up. The family doctor did assess her and say, yeah, she's perfectly healthy. She's hitting all her milestones. So I thought nothing of it. But I did mention to the surgeon that she loved to tiptoe. She loves to tiptoe. She could run tiptoeing. She would just tiptoe most of the time rather than walk. And I asked whether that was related at all to, the extra bone on her foot. And he was like, no, nothing to do with that. So I said, okay, good to know. I'm later learning as I watched a few YouTube videos that tiptoeing is one of those stimming things, like what autistic children tend to do to find comfort. Some of them like flap their hands, some sort of lightly hit their head, and some do a spin, whereas some tiptoe. So yeah, tiptoe was one of those signs, and I had no idea. A! A is for?
Alligator.
Alligator. Good job. What's that?
W.
W. W is for?
Whale.
Whale. Good job. What's that?
M.
M. M is for?
Monkey.
Monkey. Good job. Okay. I was just mostly relieved to finally have an answer so that we know how to best support her moving forward. It was just scary, not knowing much.
With this diagnosis, there's a lot of things we could do. We need to continue with her speech therapy, and we also want to start her on occupational therapy. We seem to notice that she has a hard time with the fine motor skills, like she can't put her socks on.
Like her fingers don't have strength somehow. Or she's not able to coordinate her finger strength with the task at hand. So for example, a marker. She didn't know how to to take the lid off the marker and then reattach it properly. She is struggling with that. So with those things, it's gonna cost us a lot unless we have some other way of paying for it or other way of getting reimbursed. So we are applying for DTC, which is a federal grant or tax credit, disability tax credit. The next time we need to file our income tax, they're gonna give us a lot of tax credit from the time that Sabrina was born. So for past 5 years, we would receive some kind of tax credit for the past 5 years. Like retro pay.
Yeah. And we also are in the process of applying for FACD, which is a provincial government grant. The DTC is a federal government, and this is a provincial government grant.
FSCD is Family Support for Children with Disability.
Yeah.
Which is a monetary grant in addition to the disability tax credit. All of these to say that we do live in Alberta, Canada, and that these are just grants that are in place from our in place through our government.
So yeah, so we can continue to pay for the speech therapy and also start her own occupational therapy, because my health benefit that I have through work, you can only, there's a limit, like only $1,000 per year per person per type of therapy. So in there, speech therapy and occupational therapy goes on the same category. So you can only spend $1,000 on either speech therapy or occupational therapy. So once we max that out, we're not gonna get any more grant through my work health benefit. So we're looking for other ways be able to pay for her continuing therapy sessions.
Yeah, and luckily there are government grants in place to help and support families with children with disabilities. I don't like the word disability. I feel like it's more so that they I don't know. Someone like Sabrina, for example, they just process things differently. They act differently. I think I prefer differently abled. But one day, hopefully one day things will change for the better.
Yeah, Sabrina has she has very good memorization skills.
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness. Like
she could memorize like several books line by line, and she would recite to you like word for word.
even without looking at the book, she can memorize the book from cover to cover and then tell you word for word what that book, well, only if she wants to though. She doesn't do it on command. So if I ask her, hey Sabrina, can you tell me what you just read from beginning to end, if she doesn't feel like it, she'll say no and walk away. But then suddenly as she's laying in bed, and then Chanel, for example, asks her, like, Sabrina, read me a story. Sabrina would suddenly say it, like, read the whole story in the dark without the book. And we could hear them because we have a baby monitor on them, so we could actually see and hear them. And we're like, wow, she just read the entire book.
And that was one of my special skills that I had when I was a kid too. I was able to have extreme memorization skills when I was a kid. That memorization disappeared, as I become teenager. But when I was young, I had those skills, and Sabrina is exhibiting the same thing that I had when I was a kid.
And that was another question that I had for the psychologist during our diagnosis appointment. I did ask, like, is it genetic? Is autism spectrum disorder genetic? And she did say yes. She said it's likely genetic, more likely genetic. She did give us the example. She gave us an example about this state or something
in Silicon Valley when digital era was booming. There were a lot of engineers in Silicon Valley, and they would marry each other, and their kids, high number of them were diagnosed with autism. And that's because those computer engineers and whatnot, a lot of them tend to have autism, and that's why they're so good with numbers and math and all that.
Yeah, and that's what she said. She said, can you believe that the rate of kids with autism went up in Silicon Valley ever since these engineers started occupying the area. So it was interesting to hear. And she's saying that was sort of a bit of evidence or insight into autism being possibly more likely genetic. So when she said that, I was like, well, I know I don't have autism. And then I looked at him and I was like, do you?
I may have, just undiagnosed.
You're not just doing that to take credit, like you know your gut is telling you do?
Well, when I was reading the report that our psychologist gave us and things that she was describing about Sabrina, it was almost like she's describing me.
Oh my goodness. So lovely. And here's another thing too, is Justin never told me up until the day of the diagnosis, when we finally got the diagnosis, he never ever mentioned to me about, when I was growing up, my teachers would mention to my mom, like, hey, you probably want to get him assessed. He's probably autistic. He never mentioned that until that day. And that's when it dawned on me. I was like, how could you have left something as vital as that out? That would have totally eased my mind, because before this diagnosis appointment, we had hunches. His hunch was autism. Mine was between the two. It was autism or ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or maybe even attention deficit disorder without the hyperactivity. Because she wasn't, to me, I was like, she's not paying attention. When I'm calling her name, she's not paying attention. When she's doing a task, it's either she's hyper focused on the task, or she would do a task, drop it, move on to the next thing. So I thought it's an attention thing. It was between the two, so yeah, good to know, honey.
To me, it never was part of my identity,
Yeah.
or it wasn't a huge factor of my life because I was never diagnosed, so I didn't think much of it. And to me, it felt like it never really hindered me.
Or affected you?
Yeah.
Did it affect you in other, like, minute ways, tiny ways at all?
Yeah. Like, because
Unknowingly, though.
Yeah, because like I don't like to socialize with people. Like I would avoid situations where they had to socialize. So yeah, like I have like almost no socialization skills because I never practiced it growing up all
You
my
just
life.
focused on what, school and home?
Yeah, things that interest me.
Such as
Computer.
coding, computers, how things work, I guess, right? You would do a lot of research into like, how does this device or machine work?
So if autism is genetic, that means one of my parents could be another one of those who are autistic but undiagnosed.
Right.
And I'm thinking it's my dad.
Interesting. Why your dad?
Because he's extremely smart too. Like he graduated from law school, even though he never practiced as a lawyer. And as a kid, my dad would just randomly give me some scientific facts about tungstens and whatnot. And I thought, how come a man can have so much information stored in their brain? Like those information just pops out just in everyday conversations. So
And he had a law degree, didn't he?
yeah, and I, now that I'm an adult, those scientific facts just pop out of regular day conversations for
Just
me as well.
spews out of him. I remember thinking, he's making me feel like I really don't know a thing about this world. Because sometimes he would quiz me. He was like, do you know why the sky is blue? I'm like, don't ask me questions like that, dude. Oh my goodness. And yeah, sometimes like Sabrina or Chanel would ask questions that I would just like, ask Papa, go ask Papa, he knows everything. I make it look like I'm too busy, go ask Papa, I'm cooking. Like, oh my goodness. I would say I'm more book smart. No, street smart. I'm more street smart than book smart. He's more book smart. So I can like carry a conversation, no problem. I love being in a social setting, but although sometimes I notice as an adult over time, I felt like it would be sometimes too draining to be at a social setting all the time. So then I would need to sort of decompress at the end of the day, or sometimes hibernate in our home and not socialize for a while, like for a few days. But yes.
Yeah, and not wanting to engage in small talks is another thing that I do. Like to a random stranger, when I get in an elevator and random stranger walks in. This is when I used to work at downtown. I had to take the elevator to 10th floor to go to my office.
Oh man.
Random stranger came in and then he's like, "This weather, right?" And I looked at him and said, "Right." And I looked away because I didn't want to talk to him.
Like, please don't ask me for more.
And then he saw me press 10 on the button, and he asked me, "What's on the 10th floor?" And I said, "I don't know, it's my first day here." And then I looked away.
You're like, I'm not gonna ask you in return. So like, normally you would ask like, what's on your floor? Or is it your first day too, or something, like just to carry the conversation. But I totally get it. I understand. Like, that's another thing I researched on is like people with autism actually find it overwhelming or overstimulating to have to come up with a script, like as if you have to memorize a script because it doesn't come to you naturally to converse back and forth with another individual. So you come up with a script like, okay, the elevator script, for example. That's what they're gonna call it, right? I have an elevator script for whoever tries to come in and gives me a small talk. I have a weather script. So someone talks about the weather, I know what to say. I was like, weather, right? Yeah, I know, right? Like, only in Calgary. And then that's pretty much all you know. So like if the person suddenly talks about politics and you don't have a politics script, you're suddenly at a loss and you suddenly feel like silenced and you just don't. You just quit conversing. You just stay completely silent and just stand there and look away and just like pretend like you're doing something else. Maybe fidget with your phone because you're like, oh man, I don't have a script for this. But I will take note of that and I'll make sure when I go home or later on in my break, I'm going to come up with a script.
Yeah, so to me, it's almost like I have to mimic human behavior. I have to. It almost feel like I'm a robot who's learning to become human.
Yes. Can you imagine? I married a robot. That's awesome. But I find it very, like, so amazing the fact that, you know, the way your mind processes life and the world around you and just people around you is so different and it does not come to you as naturally as, say, a neurotypical person. I just find that so fascinating. And the fact that you would have to memorize scripts in order to feel socially accepted. You know, like, it is fascinating, but it's also sad. It's also sad to know that there are people out there with autism that are struggling with having to adjust to the world and people around them, as opposed to the world and people around them trying to adjust to them and to their world, you know? So yeah.
This fun fact that I learned was that among verbal autistic people, their communication is just as good as among neurotypical people. But if you start mixing them up, then the level of communication drops significantly. So neurotypical people and verbal autistic people do not know how to communicate with each other, although among verbal autistic people, they know how to communicate with each other.
Yeah. So you can only imagine what our marriage is like and the conversations that we have. Let's say, for example, what's an example where I say something and then you took it out of proportion?
That's a topic for another day.
Yeah, so anyway, it's just, you know how I would say something that is, I thought, typical or common knowledge to everybody, and then he would suddenly tell me that he perceived it differently. And I would go like, who would even perceive it that way? Like, that never crossed my mind. Like, why would your mind even go there? And that's when we, like, every time we would hash things out, it's like, wow, like, the way your mind works is completely different from the way my mind worked. And I always thought it was like a man is from Mars and women are from Venus. Like, we're just, men and women are just wired differently. That's what I thought it was, or it has been in our marriage whenever we would have disagreements. But then after the diagnosis of Sabrina, and then the psychologist saying it could be genetic, and then he's actually relating to Sabrina's report, I was like, okay, so it's not just a man versus woman, men and women are wired differently. It's also the man has autism, so he is a neurodivergent. He has a neurodivergent way of thinking. I have a neurotypical way of thinking.
Well, we don't know that for sure because I was never diagnosed.
Would you like to get diagnosed?
I don't think it would change my life one bit at this point.
In your 40s.
Yeah.
Like
one of the things that was in the report was that Sabrina could get a support on how, when people are flirting with you, like what signs do you look for when she becomes teenager,
or when they're joking.
Yeah. Things like that. It's like, I would have benefited from that support when I was teenager. But
you had no clue.
Yeah.
Like, if someone are flirting with you, you're like, I don't know, she flips her hair a lot. I have no idea what that. Maybe she's itchy. Her hair on her shoulder is being itchy. I don't know. She'll probably get a haircut. You know?
Yeah, but at this point, it wouldn't make a difference to me.
Because you basically evolved based on your experiences. You've basically adjusted to life, and you're comfortable. Are you comfortable with not knowing the diagnosis? And also comfortable with, even if they did give you the diagnosis, do you feel like you're comfortable either way?
I'm comfortable either way.
That's
with
good.
or without diagnosis, my life is pretty good.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy that you're feeling content. And that does give me hope that Sabrina...
And, yeah, I'm not worried about Sabrina either,
Yeah.
because I know she's gonna grow up just like how I had.
Hopefully better,
Yeah.
happier, because now she has supports in place, right? Hopefully. I also don't want to traumatize her, but to be honest with you, every time she goes to like speech therapy and like the psychology assessment, she's just happy. She's just happy to be in a different environment. She's happy to have like that one-on-one time with her mama. You know, she's probably craving that attention, which I wish I could give her. If only Chanel would not be butting in, trying to get my attention and competing for my attention as well. So yes. Alright, you guys, that's all for our video today. Please feel free to share any questions, any comments, or even personal stories down in the comment section below. We read every single one of your comments. We just apologize sincerely for not having the time to respond to every single one. We appreciate all the feedback and all your stories, and thank you. Just thank you for hitting the subscribe button. If you feel like you're enjoying our videos so far, that goes a long way to help our channel, to help support our channel to be sort of viewed by others as well who might benefit from this video today. Yeah, just thank you so much for your unwavering support, for your continued patience with us, and for all the love, especially from our fellow love withstanders out there. That's right, you guys are part of our family once you hit the subscribe button. And yeah, we appreciate every single one of you for following along in our journey and our story. We will be bringing more videos coming up. We will do our very best to put a video out more often than we're used to. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as we did. Thank you for all the love and well wishes towards Sabrina. Thank you for the support as well towards our family. We would love to hear your stories. Yeah, we're very proud. We're basically the proudest parents to Sabrina, and we're very excited for her future. She is currently showing and has been showing interest in outer space, in science, numbers. Oh, I forgot to mention, she does know how to read. She is self-taught. She taught herself to read just from memorizing the common sight words. She also has taught herself to write. What did you draw?
I draw Metro and Colby.
And what does it say?
Pokemon.
Let me see.
Spelled
Oh my
Pokemon.
goodness. Can I see what it says? Can I see? Did you write this, Sabrina? That looks amazing. You are amazing. She would read like a greeting card and then just memorize the greeting and then write on her own. Like if I were to say write a card to someone, she would memorize and write it. Like what was that she said? I hope you have a great summer. Love, and then her friend. She's also, I feel like she's very artistic. She always has been. She knows how to sketch. Like she just focuses on minute details, and yeah, she's very detail oriented, and we're very proud of her, and we are so excited for her future. Sabrina, if you get to watch this in the future, Mama and Papa love you so much, and we're so proud of you. So yes, we would like to send all our best wishes and love and support to other families out there that are also going through this similar journey. And yeah, we just want you to understand that you're not going through this alone, and there's more of us coming out sharing the same experience. So yes, we love you, everybody. Sorry I talk too much. And my hair is still wet. But yes, love you. Thank you for watching.